Warning shots and tear gas are keeping some protesters away from the U.S. Embassy in Egypt's capital this morning. And CNN's Ian Lee is in Cairo. He is joining us now. So as you look around, what do you see happening, Ian?
Well, Robin, right now, if you can see behind me, we have roughly 300 protesters squaring off with police. Police are responding with tear gas. The protesters responding with rocks. What we're seeing really is a battle of attrition, neither side really committing to go and after the other. The protesters, their goal is to go toward the embassy. The police are just securing the area. They're securing a perimeter, not really trying to stop these protests, but really just making sure the protesters don't enter the cordon or the area around the embassy. But I want to kind of talk about the makeup of the protesters. If you remember, last Tuesday is when the U.S. Embassy protesters broke into the U.S. Embassy, tore down the American flag. That crowd was predominantly more ultra-conservative Muslims, more extremists, if you will. This crowd out here is none of that. It's more disenfranchised youth, and this is kind of the group that we've seen over the past year and a half battling police on the streets of Cairo. Definitely a different makeup. But what we're hearing is tomorrow, Friday, the Muslim Brotherhood has called for mass demonstrations to take to the streets. The Brotherhood has called for peaceful demonstrations, but that would be a change from the violence that we've been seeing. And this battle behind me has been going on for over 12 hours now. Okay,
so you made a good point about the different makeup of the different protesters. So if the Muslim Brotherhood is calling for peaceful protests tomorrow, does that concern what they feel is the offensive film, or does that concern the government's stand so far?
Well, it's definitely what we're seeing right now on the streets of Cairo is all related to that film that came out. And when you heard President Mohamed Morsi give his statement, he did condemn the protesters breaching the embassy, but he reserved his strongest condemnation for the film itself. And he said he understands why people are upset, and he is upset, and his base is the Muslim Brotherhood. So this definitely all revolves around that film, which protesters say insults Islam.
Now, in Libya, there were thoughts that maybe this was all under the guise of being about the film, but that was actually a diversion, and it was a protest by people who may have been linked to al-Qaeda. How do things differ greatly in Egypt from what people suspect is going on possibly in Libya?
Well, what happened in Libya and what's happening in Egypt really is night and day. In Libya, we saw a very well-organized attack go after the U.S. compound, and a lot of people are blaming al-Qaeda for this attack. What we're seeing in Egypt is more of a general feeling amongst the people. These protesters aren't as organized as what we saw in Libya. These protesters are protesters we've seen before in the streets. This doesn't seem like it has really any connection to Libya. Other than that, it seems like in Libya they used the film as a diversion for their attack. Here in Egypt, these protesters were out to voice their anger about that. And the U.S. Embassy in Egypt usually is well fortified with police. Egyptian police, and also the military. And just to let you know, the Egyptian military at all times has at least 4 armored personnel carriers around the U.S. Embassy. And we talked to the military and asked why the military didn't use its forces to stop the protesters from breaching the embassy. The military told us that they're there to prevent a Libyan-style attack. If militants with weapons were to try to breach the U.S. Embassy, then they would step in. But they said it's the police responsibility to deal with rioters. And last Tuesday, they weren't able to do it, but today it looks like they're able to.
Ian Lee is live this morning in Cairo. Thank you so much for giving us that insight. Very important to have. Appreciate it. We'll keep